Good morning, all. Good morning, all. Thank you for joining Direction Forward Memphis. Once again, my name is Neil Lewis. I'm a 19-year Memphis Memphian. I was going to say Memphis veteran, which it feels like a little bit, but I'm a military USMC veteran also. So I just want to welcome you to the platform. Um, Please like, comment, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also, please give your opinion. I'd like to know what you think about these individual topics. We'll be jumping into news again that's going on around the city, things that were of interest to me, things I believe that are of interest to the community, but also, just overall important. There are some things that sometimes get a little bit depressing, I guess you could call it, in a way. But ultimately, it's good to know what's going on around you so you can have an idea about how to tackle that issue going into the future. And that's ultimately what this channel is about. Providing solutions to problems. So we may go over a good amount of what's going on as far as what we see as a problem or what somebody would constitute as a problem. But ultimately, there will be solutions that will be offered as well. I've always been one of those individuals. If you see a problem, find the solution. So if you're going to voice the problem, voice your solution for that problem as well, and see whether or not there's something concrete or something actionable in that solution that can actually be seen, come to fruition, and be put into place, so some type of progress is made. Bottom line. And I'm not on any type of, trying to save anything, so on and so forth, but I care about the community. I care about Memphis. I care about what goes on here in Memphis, what we're putting our money to, what the city council is doing to make our lives better or make it more safe. Ultimately, what the mayor's administration is doing to make things better, and obviously better doesn't necessarily mean overnight. Sometimes there are, it takes a while. But as long as you know you're driving in the right direction. And so that's another goal of this platform specifically, is to highlight those things that are going on so people are aware of it, because sometimes things might have been put into motion that don't have to do with necessarily money and so on and so forth, that we're not aware of, so we can't be a part of it. So that brings me to a couple of projects that I'll be working on. So I am looking at a couple of things, and so it won't always be news stories that are going on in the Memphis area. This will be, I will be looking into some of the nonprofits that are happening, some of the community activism groups, businesses here in Memphis that could contribute or currently are contributing to the overall betterment of the community, because I feel like they should be highlighted. And so, I think the outlook is great in Memphis. I like what's happening. Obviously, some of the news stories are a little bit more difficult to, some of the news stories are a little bit difficult to swallow and stomach. But I mean, these are the things that are going on in the city. So how do you come up with a solution if you don't know what the problem is? So we're looking at those things initially. Okay. And I'm just giving my opinion, and hopefully in the future or right now, I haven't started necessarily promoting the channel right at this moment. It will start coming in. So you'll see a bunch of links and so on and so forth if you're on social media about the platform. And we'll also be out in the community doing things, talking to people. So there'll be some different types of videos out as well that, you can watch different types of content. But your opinion is what drives everything, because as your opinions are dropped, then action can be taken, because it's not one individual. It takes an army of people. There's strength in numbers. So we want to drive those numbers up. Thank you for joining. Like, comment, subscribe. And let's get into the first thing. So, all right. And so to start off on a positive note, obviously, if you've been paying attention to the news at all, you know that so Elon Musk is the figurehead, somebody that is actively doing a lot of different things, doing things in space with SpaceX, He has the electric cars. Everybody knows, I would imagine, what a Tesla vehicle is. I know he has some AI things and droids or whatever it is with Tesla as well. And then if you're, a Twitter person, then obviously, he's the owner of Twitter. So it's been reported. There were people in our community that have been working very hard, and there is a AI, artificial intelligence supercomputer that has been proposed to be built in Memphis. So obviously they've gotten through the preliminary stages of speaking about is it realistic that the company could exist here in Memphis? They've gotten through that portion of things. So it's been reported to us that this is something that is moving forward. And you know how in any situation, it may not, but I just think it's a good thing that the prospect is there, because that they would drive business in Memphis, all businesses, suppliers, and also employees. More than likely, the majority would be hired, would be Memphians. And so, again, there were people that have worked very hard to get this situation to happen. You can't do anything but take your hat off to the people, being forward thinking and describing everything that needs to happen. And I believe they are speaking about this at the city council meeting that's going to happen later on in July. I think it's July 24th or somewhere toward the end of July. So we'll get the chance to hear from the people that got this in motion to see what they have to say, because I don't know what that is. They started to speak about it in the July 9th council meeting, and they tabled it and put a pin in it. And as one of my good friends would say, and decided to have that discussion during the end of the month meeting. So I'm looking forward to that. But this story specifically right here, what utility support could AI supercomputer need? MLG and WCEO updates Memphis City Council. Okay. So this story is a couple of days old. And let's take a look to see what they have to say. So, it's a part of X. So it's a part of X, formerly known as Twitter. So that's an amazing thing. That means that the whole bureaucracy of having to go through a board, and you have shareholders that have to vote and so on and so forth, doesn't need to happen to the capacity of a publicly traded corporation. X is privately owned, and so I'm sure they have a board of directors or a board period that are involved, but they make the decisions and they can move forward. So that's amazing. So it's a part of X. I wasn't sure whether or not this AI supercomputer was going to be something that came from or was going to be a new entity. All right. So X's AI's supercomputer site in Memphis could use up to 150 megawatts of power during 150 megawatts of power an hour during peak times. And according to Doug McGowan, CEO and president of Memphis Light, Gas, and Water, the utility company is making moves to ensure the needs do not impact the area's electric grid stability. I don't know about you, but the confidence in MLG and W is not high. So McGowan spoke to the Memphis City Council Tuesday, which was July 9th, morning, about the utility company support for the tech company in depth. This is the first presentation council has received since the project was announced in early June. In June, the Greater Memphis Chamber announced xAI's Gigafactory of Compute will be located in Memphis. The facility would house a supercomputer that would aid in powering artificial intelligence technology. And much of the presentation was information that has already been made public, like that xAI would be will be building its own electric substation to get an additional 150 megawatts. Because xAI will be building its own substation, it will be reimbursed through a margin allowance on the electric rate until it is fully repaid for the investment. The cost for the substation will be $24 million, but still requires the okay from the Tennessee Valley Authority, which MLG&W is a local power partner in. Anything over 100 megawatts requires the TVA's board's approval, McGowan said, and it is still pending. There are some actions xAI will have to take before the board will approve that 150 megawatts, and I would suggest that one of them is a demand response program, McGowan said. A demand response program, McGowan later explained, having businesses that are large consumers of electricity reduce their electric use during specific time periods. Earlier this year, during freezing temperatures, power demands reached 34,526 megawatts at a system average temperature of 4 degrees, which was an all-time TVA record. MLG&W asked customers to conserve power due to the strain on the electric grid a day before the peak power demand. During the December 2022 winter storm, TVA said the demand was at 33,427 megawatts, which caused power plants to freeze up. How much energy will xAI use? When asked about the daily energy consumption that xAI would be using, McGowan said that the tech giant would not be using 150 megawatts every hour on the hour. The 150 megawatts is xAI's peak demand, McGowan said, at any moment in time. It is kind of like flooring the gas pedal in your car. Your miles per gallon goes to 0. You use a lot of gas, but you don't do it all the time. You take your foot off the gas and you consume less gas than you would if you were flooring it all the time, McGowan said. McGowan said that the additional need of 150 megawatts on the system would not have an impact day to day because it is well within range of what MLG&W can buy from TVA. McGowan said that xAI will pay the prevailing rate that any commercial customer pays for water, electricity, and gas. xAI will be using existing infrastructure for water, gas, and electricity for the new supercomputer site in Memphis. McGowan said that xAI will have to increase the current electric load at the site, and MLG&W will bear the cost of the increase. There is a substation right next door. There's 8 megawatts of electric power going into the facility, and they will be using that. We will increase the availability of 50 megawatts by some investments that will make the substation that will cost us about $750,000. And I want to be clear, when a new company comes or a new household comes, we invest in the infrastructure to get the power to them. All right, discussions around xAI and water have been present from the beginning. When the announcement of the project was made, Project Protect Our Aquifer, Memphis Community Against Pollution, and Young, Gifted, and Green made a joint statement urging the company to aid in the investment into a wastewater reuse system. xAI could have applied for a permit to put a well in the ground and draw as much water as needed directly from the Memphis aquifer, but McGowan said that MLG&W heavily advised against it. Industries in Memphis currently use water pumped from the aquifer with the same quality as drinking water for cooling purposes, and xAI will be no different for the time being. What we are talking about is whether we should be using a aquifer water to cool computers, and the answer is no, we should not, McGowan said. The answer is we should be using another means for industrial cooling, and that's what we are calling gray water. Effluent or wastewater is also currently flushed into the Mississippi River after being processed at a water plant. The gray water plant would take the effluent, which is currently not clean enough to be used for cooling, treat it, and then have it be used for cooling. If you put the wastewater through one more treatment process, you can make that water clean enough to be used for industrial purposes, McGowan said. McGowan said they are looking to build a 10 million gallon a day plant, which can provide all the needs for TVA Allen combined cycle plant in the city of Memphis. McGowan said it is not a question of if the gray water plant should be built, it's how fast it can be built. MLG&W is currently conducting a study and should have an answer back in 30 days, McGowan said. That's a long story. Okay, so there's a lot of different points involved inside this deal right here. Okay, that's amazing. They're making mountains move on this thing. They're trying to make this thing happen, and I think that they should be. I think that this thing is because you're building infrastructure, which increases the value. Obviously, if you have assets that belong in the city, it increases the value of the assets that you have, which overall takes Memphis to, kind of pulls us out of a certain bin that we're currently in. Anything that we can do to build more for people is a plus. It's a positive. It's a win. So 150 megawatts of power, and so they went into this 150 megawatts, but it kind of put it in context a little bit because they said, during a certain day when we had a peak power and they asked people to conserve energy, it was around 34,000 is what the total usage was during that period of time. During the conservation period, what they knew the peak power would be. And then during the summer storm or the winter storm in 2022, December 2022, then they had a peak power period of 33,000. So the 150 megawatts is put into context in that way. Obviously, that's a high amount because if you have to get an approval from TVA, you're pulling a good amount. You're pulling more than what a normal business obviously will be pulling. So issue that you would think about is, does that affect us in any type of way? So if we're already at a 34,500 or whatever the number was, peak power, and you add an extra 150, if I'm sitting in my house, does that happen more often? I would imagine not, because if we got to that point, it's for some environmental reason. I'm just coming directly from common sense. I don't have any background in power consumption, in grids. I know nothing. I have an electronics background, obviously, but not on this scale. But it's just good to know that, I feel like, and then you saw the little piece in here also when they said that they were going to be, the cost for the substation will be $24 million. And xAI is going to build it to get the additional 150 megawatts, but it will be reimbursed through a margin allowance. I'm wondering what that means. How does that affect the money coming in? I know we have smart people that are on our council, so they know a lot about this thing, the money that's going to whatever designated places that they've already decided. If we're giving concessions for a company because they're building the substation, which is good because it doesn't have to come out of any pots of money that we currently have, and then obviously they would pay less in some form. So maybe if they use 100 megawatts an hour, which is whatever X dollar amount, they're only actually being charged 75 megawatts an hour because they have an allowance now with MLG&W. As much as MLG&W pay charges in utilities, in my mind, they should be paying a good amount of money for 100 megawatts. I wonder how much I use. I'm gonna pull that up one of these days. I'm gonna look at that. So I guess I can go down to MLG&W and find out actually what a single household actually uses for per year in electricity added up, just so I can kind of see, or even a business. So any business owners out there, if you went to MLG&W and actually asked, and especially like a large place, so maybe like a warehouse, somewhere down off Airways toward State Line down that way, or anywhere down Lamar or wherever is a warehouse. Royal Furniture. I'm wondering what you all use per year in power to see what the difference is. If they're asking for 150 megawatts, I'm wondering what one of these large warehouses use, because they're using power just to cool, I would imagine, and then regular, electrical that's in the building, lights, outlets, if they have any type of IT equipment, then it's obviously drawing power. So I'm just curious to see what is used in a regular sense in a large facility. But okay, so yeah, so there will be an allowance, margin allowance. Money will be given back via bills that they have to pay, or bills that they have to pay will be reduced to pay back the $24 million invested in this substation. And then the other part of that you have to think about is, if they're building a substation that's down on President's Island, just say, for instance, if they left, what benefit is that at that point? I'm guessing you could probably get somebody else in there now with that already being built, if, xAI left for whatever reason. So there's still value to that location, an increased value to that location. I doubt that they'll leave if they build that and they move in and we're set for my lifetime. But it'd still be interesting to see, what that fallback would be if that were to be the case. All right, so $24 million for the substation. Still waiting for the Tennessee Valley Authority approval. So and they also, so again, they puts the 150 in context, because they said during peak hours we were well over 34,000. So it doesn't scare you as much. I mean, it doesn't scare me as much to hear 150. Now, if it was 1,000 and during our peak period we were at 34,000, then it's like, wow, okay, hold on. That's X percentage of, but 150 doesn't seem like it would be, the percentage of that would be, hold on one second. So the percentage of 150 divided by, let's take the lower value, 33,427. I think I'm doing this right. Please don't murder me if I'm not. So below 1%. Okay, so yeah, it'd be 0.004%. So if I come back and I say 0.004%. All right, so 0.004 times 33,427. So yeah, something along those lines. You're talking about less than 1% of the total megawatts during peak hours. That's it doesn't cause any fear or panic when you talk about it in those terms. So I'm glad that they said, and I wonder what the average is also. I understand because of winter storms and they'll be also purchasing that much more from TVA. So, I mean, it looks like they're, as far as, okay, I don't have a lot of faith in MLG&W or whatnot. I said that part. But at the same time, it looks like they're covering their bases. They obviously know what they're doing. They're providing a window that, it won't have any effect to Memphis or the citizens that live in this city. So that's low. All right, so 150 megawatts, we already know there's going to be an allowance that would be given from MLG&W to xAI. All right, well within range. Here's the other piece. Okay, so all right, there is a substation right next door. There's 8 megawatts of electric power going into the facility, and they will be using that. We will increase that availability to 50 megawatts by some investments that will make the substation that will cost us about $750,000. So I'm guessing. All right, so I'm guessing there's already a substation that is in that location where xAI is planning to locate itself, and the substation there currently has 8 megawatts of electricity power that's already going into the facility. Okay, so and the plan is to increase that currently right now, increase that availability to 50 megawatts, which will cost MLG&W or the city about $750,000. And if I'm saying that incorrectly, please let me know, but that's what I'm getting from it. All right. And so they'll be doing whatever investment to that substation to make sure that they can get the 50 megawatts out of it, which I guess include improvements to the current infrastructure that's out there, that substation, along with the substation that will be built by xAI and ultimately reimbursed by MLG&W. So right now, with the $24 million and the investment that's going to cost about $750, you're looking roughly what, $25 million? Because it was 24 point something. If I'm remembering correctly. No, it just said 24. Yeah, so let's call it $25 million. So $25 million total investment now to have them there. All right. And so now, obviously, there has to be cooling for a supercomputer. Any computer, even if you have a computer in your house, there's fans in it that cool it. Or in a large supercomputer like the one that they're planning to build here, normally those types of systems are water cooled. And that's what I was thinking. They were planning on pulling water from the Mississippi, but they spoke in here about building wells and pulling out. And so you have to know that the water going into the system can't be dirty water. It has to be treated to a certain extent. Maybe not the same quality of water that we have coming out of our faucets when we drink or cook, but it needs to be treated. And so they're looking at building a gray water facility. And so they said gray water facility and talked well before xAI announcement. When the announcement of the project was made, Protect Our Aquifer, Memphis Community Against Pollution, Young, Gifted, and Green made a joint statement urging the company to aid in the investment into a wastewater reuse system, which would make sense. Because you don't want to have to recycle, you don't want to have to use new water all the time. That's a waste. So use the wastewater. If it's being used for cooling, use the wastewater and try to recycle. xAI could have applied for a permit to put a well in the ground, but they said they didn't want to do it. Industries in Memphis currently use water pumped from the aquifer, which with the same quality as drinking water for cooling purposes. xAI would be no. So I guess right now, and so for the aquifer, let's see what this is. I don't know. Let's look real quick. Memphis aquifer. Bear with me just for a second. I just want to find out what this is. Okay, so boom, Memphis aquifer, also known as the Memphis Sand Aquifer or Sparta Aquifer, is a natural underground reservoir that supplies water to Shelby County, Tennessee, and parts of 8 other states. It's located 350 to 1,100 feet below ground surface and is part of a larger aquifer system that extends to the depth of 2,600 feet. The aquifer is made up of layers of sand, clay, silt, and gravel. The sand aquifer is an unparalleled natural resource spanning more than 7,000 square miles across portions of 8 states. Multiple alternating layers of primarily sand and clay with a bit of silt and gravel mixed here and there make up this massive underground water source. Who knew that? I ain't know. Learning something new. I swear you learn something new every day. Okay, so let's look at protect our aquifer. So the aquifer, the Memphis Sand Aquifer, is an unparalleled reaching depths of 3,000 feet beneath Shelby County. The aquifer feeds both municipal systems and private wells, which end up supplying residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural water needs across the Mid-South. So you know how they say that Memphis has some of the best water coming out of the tap? I guess this is the reason why they do. So it says Memphis Sand Aquifer provides some of the best water in the country, and we have to protect it thanks to the natural filtration flowing through the sand. And normally, if you were in one of those situations where you were trying to get water from somewhere like out in the middle of nowhere or in the wilderness, you want to dig down and you'll find like wells of water in the sand, and that's clean to drink. It's because it's being filtered by the earth, by sand and all the rest of that stuff. There's no contaminants inside of it. So that's the reason. Thanks to the natural filtration flowing through the sand, the water we get from the aquifer is of extremely high quality, right from the ground to your tap. We don't just rely on the aquifer for clean drinking water, but also manufacturing, power production, agriculture, and development. Another reason why Memphis is great, because we have a whole reservoir under our city that we're able to drink clean water from. So it's almost like spring water, or, just natural water. I'm sure that it's treated still at plants. So this here actually is a picture that depicts exactly what the aquifer consists of. And then if you drop down a little bit more, I guess it shows where this underground reservoir resides. And, obviously Memphis is smack in the middle of it. It's amazing. 3,000 feet deep. Who knew? The aquifer is primarily recharged by precipitation, rainwater, and runoff percolate through the soil and gradually seep into the aquifer. The area that feeds the aquifer is called the recharge zone, and it is a critical part of the overall health of the aquifer. Urbanization, manufacturing facilities, and waste management sites in the recharge zone can all negatively affect the aquifer if left unchecked. So it's important to know exactly what's going on. Yeah, it's amazing. So we're smack in the middle of the recharge zone also. All right, for years, Memphis Sand Aquifer has been overused and underappreciated, contributing to ever increasing levels of pollution and contamination as growing water demand places pressure on the aquifer. It's critical to monitor and manage its usage carefully to ensure long-term stability. Okay, so anyways, did you know there are approximately 200 known contaminant sites across Shelby County, 10 of them federally recognized Superfund sites and active remediation? So I'm sure that they are very, the Memphis Sand Aquifer is not infinite, and neither is the time we have to ensure it's preserved for future generations. At every step, protect our fights for Memphis water. All right, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, no, I mean, it's just good information to know. So we are fed, we're fed the water from an underground reservoir that exists in this area. We are part of the recharge zone. So that's just good information to know, because when you have a large company that's expecting to use a large amount of water, right? If they're expecting to use a large amount of water, you want to know where that water is coming from. If it's obviously not, they said not infinite. So the amount of water that's coming out of that well is important. So it says, so they are looking at building a gray water facility. So they already have advised against doing a well directly underground. And then it says industries in Memphis currently use water pumped from the aquifer with the same quality as drinking water for cooling purposes. And for the time being, xAI will be no different. Okay. And so he clearly says what we're talking about is whether we should be using the aquifer to cool water to cool computers. And the answer is no, we shouldn't. The answer is we should be using another means for industrial cooling. And that's what they're calling the gray water. So wastewater, treated wastewater, would be the water that would be fed into the supercomputer. But they did say that for the time being, they will be using water from the aquifer. So what would be important is for us to actually pay attention and see when they make that change. And obviously, if they're going to be building the gray water facility, then we'll be looking at what the progress is of the gray water facility, because I know that would be a priority. So we can switch off the water coming from the aquifer and go into the treated wastewater cooling plant. So yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things in there that we have to pay attention to, namely the amount of refund that they're getting from the city for the substation, but it also increases the value of the infrastructure that's being built. The amount of usage, that seems pretty safe. I mean, as far as the 150 megawatts, how they're going to go about doing it. And then the water to cool, we're just looking at ultimately this gray water facility and how long it will take to get built. So it's not if, it's when. So I'll be interested to hear when they're talking about breaking ground. And what's great is they said it's not a question of if the gray water should be built, it's how fast it can be built. MLG&W is currently conducting a study and should have an answer back in 30 days. That's an amazing thing. I'm proud of everybody that's down there making this thing happen, that's involved in this thing. I take my hat off to you. It adds to the city. I'm glad that xAI is thinking about coming to the city, because this is something that's positive, that's ultimately going to be a benefit for the community as a whole, in one way or the other, whether it be, jobs that it creates that we're able to go and participate and be paid well, because there's a lot of good paying jobs, which I'll go into here in a moment, but there's a lot of good paying jobs that have been highlighted already. And also small businesses that are currently in the city can participate also. If you're a supplier or if you offer services that are required or needed at that facility, you'll be a part of this as well. So obviously it's lifting this, and then and improvements to our electrical grid and so on and so forth. I'm sure it'll pay for itself. They give the concession of $24 million. They'll still make a large amount of money because of the amount of consumption that this supercomputer is going to be using regardless. This is a great outlook for Memphis. It's a good look. And man, I take my hat off, and let's get more things just like this in here. We need businesses to boost the morale of, our people out here in these streets, and they're looking for things and don't feel like it's something that, or not able to find anything. There's just a lot of different things that occur currently that don't necessarily, there's opportunities that can come in and then create opportunities for other people too. All right, so, and just to touch this last little piece, xAI now hiring for jobs at Memphis Supercomputer site already. So we talked about they're going to make whatever improvements, and they're working out the particulars right now. And we'll hear at the end of the month the information that they have to give in terms of xAI. But all right, now, so we're looking at they're already offering jobs, okay? And so down here, it clearly says xAI, the artificial intelligence company founded by Elon Musk, is hiring locally for several jobs as the company finishes work on its Memphis supercomputer site. Finishes work. I'm maybe planning. I don't know. The company's website currently lists 8 open jobs in Memphis, along with others in London and Palo Alto. That doesn't have anything to do with us. Build AI that advances humanity, the page advertises. The most highly paid Memphis-based job listed is superintendent with a salary range of $165 to $240 per hour. So that just kind of gives you, and obviously that's the highest job that's listed right now. And I'm quite sure there are going to be a lot of regular paying jobs also. But I mean, if you're in that field set, you know, a person or multiple people can apply, and that's a lot of money, which would equate to a low-end salary estimate of $343,000 a year for a 40-hour work week. It's unknown how many people will work at the facility in Southwest Memphis, a former Electrolux manufacturing building being retrofitted into what local officials call the world's largest supercomputer. All right. And Daily Memphian, quoting an unnamed source within the company, has put the number at about 320. And so they're saying that the xAI facility could be operational by late July or August. That's crazy. If they get that by late July, it is late July almost. Okay, so foreman 135 to 165 per hour. Lead fiber technician 115 to 135 per hour. Network engineer, there's no pay listed. Project manager 100 to 125. Protective intelligence lead 90,000 to 120,000. Security operations lead 110,000 to 140,000 annually. Security technology lead, if you're in that field, 110,000 to 150,000. And superintendent, we spoke about that already. It'll be a great thing. I'm looking forward to seeing the results of all these conversations, the things that have been released, the jobs, so on and so forth to see. And I want to see what the regular jobs are. So obviously, you know, they have to have a robust employee base in that location to make sure that the facility is running properly and taken care of. So it'll be interesting to see how all this unfolds and how it benefits the city. We'll definitely keep an eye on this one. Definitely keep an eye on this one.